Hello everyone and welcome to our next episode, which is all about parenting and a woman who smartly built $1 million business around it. My guest in this video today is Mansi Zaveri, founder of Kidsstoppress, which is India's leading discovery platform for all your parenting needs, such as pregnancy to teenage behavior to child suicide and much more. Her online platform today has a reach of 10 million plus monthly views, and her podcast, which is India's first parenting talk show, has 1.5 million plus monthly streams. In this episode, you will find us chat about why parents need a parenting coach to be better parents, why child suicide rate is rising, dealing with teenage mood swings, post-pregnancy depression, and more issues that you daily come across in your journey of parenting. Thanks, Mansi, for coming to our show, Radically Yours.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You know, it's said that the only relationship that stays in your life is the relationship of your, as a child you have with your parent, and as a parent you have with your child. And, that is something that lasts forever. And that is something you cannot get out of. And you've built a really interesting platform around parenting. So I want to start by asking you one question as to what really led you to start a platform like this. I mean, there are so many parents out there in the world who could have started, because everyone goes through their unique set of experiences, and everybody would have thought at one point in time that, okay, I need to share it with the outer world. But what was the triggering point that sparked this interest in you to actually create a platform and, today have more than 20 million monthly users on your website?
I'm going to start by saying that, I don't know if you've read this book called The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. And he says that everybody thinks of an idea and everybody could execute it. But you are the chosen one, because you could do maximum justice to that idea and that concept. And that's why, you are the one who's actually doing it, because you could give it the best shape and form that it deserved. And I truly believe that, I'm so proud of the way the community is shaped up, the way the platform looks, the kind of content that we're sharing. We're kicking ass every day, and it's incredible to see how parents, send us DMs, messages, leave comments, meet us at events and hug us and cry and say, that one post that I read, or that one talk that I attended, or the one chapter in your book has changed my life and my relationship with my child. And to me, that is the most fulfilling, gratifying experience that I have ever felt, right? It's incredible to feel that. How did I stumble upon that? Because I was that mother who was struggling to find resources, whether it's in terms of brands, services, events, experiences, to live with my child. And I was a full-time working parent back in 2008 when I had my first child. And, contrary to what a lot of parents feel, I had no mom guilt. I didn't feel guilty about leaving my child behind and going to work, because working and being professionally stimulated is a natural extension of me. It is who I am. And I think I would have felt very incomplete without that. So I was never a mom who had that guilt of, I want to quit and just sit at home. And that's okay if you choose to do that. Each house and each family and everyone's circumstances are different. So there's absolutely no judgment. But for me to quit was only at the cost of when I was stimulated by the next idea that was giving me sleepless nights, because I'm someone who needs to give my 200% to everything that I do. And to me, that idea was slowly brewing with the birth of my first child, where I knew that I wanted to do something in the kids space, because I thought that there wasn't that much information out there. And then, like Oprah says, life gives you 3 whispers. For me, the first whisper was I was driving from Marine Drive to Worli, and I would never look up at any of the billboards or read a magazine or do anything. I was just constantly on my BlackBerry figuring things out. Facebook was just about getting steam. And I was like, okay, you know what? We're spending so much of our waking up time in a digital world and in front of devices. This is only going to increase. And I was like, I've got to do something in this space. The second one was that a lot of parents I would speak to, they would not kind of share what they're doing with their child because they're like, oh, if I share, then you will also be doing the same thing. And I was like, yeah, so. And they're like, parents don't share what they do with their kids. So I'm like, well, that's not going to work for me because I would love to share what I do with my child because your child is yours and he's different and he has a unique thumbprint and mine is different. So how does that even matter, right? I knew very early on we're going to be a collaborative world, right? And how can we use this power of so many incredibly involved moms and dads building a community together with shared experiences, because that's how we're going to grow. So that was the second whisper. And the third one was, I just went on a 6-month trip alone with my then 2.5-year-old to the US. And I said, I just need to take a break. And I traveled from city to city, figuring out what I wanted to do in that city when I wake up that morning. Like if I want to go strawberry picking today, I'm going to go strawberry picking today. And I'm going to figure out where is it happening, right? If I want to go to the history of, if I want to go to a museum, I'm going to go to a museum, right? So it literally was like, how amazing is that? Like discovery on the go, right? And that was it. And I just came back and I loved that experience of just being with my child through that experience in a non-intrusive fashion. And I was like, that's how it should be. And I came back and I was very keen that I want to have a second child. I had my second child built on the beta version simultaneously. And 2013 is when I quit my job because I wanted to quit my job. Because the next idea brewing in my head was in its full fructation, and I was like, okay, this is what I want to do next, and I'm going to get sleepless nights doing this, and this is exciting me right now, and this is what I want to do. And that's it. And I launched Kidsstoppress in 2013, and I was very sure that it's not going to be a hobby business. It's going to be something that's going to pan out just the way that it is today. Multimedia platform, making money, building community, connecting with people, empowering parents to make informed choices. Radhika, my vision 10 years ago was to empower parents to make informed choices, and it still stays the same. This one line drives me to wake up even 10 years later to deliver on what parenting and childcare today is.
But you said that you left your corporate job to start this. Where were you working earlier?
So I've had a career spanning. I started my career in advertising and marketing with O&M, advertising agency. I was working on Unilever businesses back then. So I had great insight into consumer behavior and consumer understanding, which I think was a very important part of my life. That first boss that I got, who shaped me to be the professional that I am today. And I'm still very, very well connected with her. And she's like my guru. And
what did she teach you?
She taught me discipline. She taught me grit. She taught me how to understand and read people. She taught me how to understand what people mean beyond what they say. Because in consumer behavior, everybody will give you an idealistic answer. She taught me to understand the many Indias that exist in one India. Like we've done research across pockets of Nagpur, Lucknow, Chennai, Bangalore, Amritsar, Varanasi, Allahabad, like so many different places. That was, and going down even to the remotest villages, right, to understand. I used to work on a business brand called Ponds, right? So you have from a 5 rupee to a 50 rupee product. And to understand your lowest common denominator and understand ki, unki kya aspirations hain, unke kya dreams hain, unke kya goals hain, what is their standard of beauty, what makes them feel empowered, just putting that Pond's cold cream or putting that little Pond's powder on top of that cold cream is what they created as their BB cream, what we call now, right? So the rural women actually created it in such a simplistic way. And to just understand the different definitions of beauty. So just understanding consumer behavior was just so fascinating for me that I continue to do that today. And doing that, then I went on to work with Westside, establishing their digital practices. I did that for a year. Then I headed brand for French Connection, that's FC UK in India, because retail was becoming a big part of India. So I was in lifestyle and fashion for about 4 or 5 years. And then I quit on to start something. And that consumer behavior journey even continued to me certifying as a conscious parenting coach, because just understanding people and what drives them and why are they behaving the way they're behaving is so fascinating. I mean, it's something that still fascinates me even now.
Yeah. But I want to dive deeper into your business.
Yes.
And ask you questions around that. But firstly, tell me about the name. How did you stumble upon that?
Interesting. So Stop Press means stop the press for something important to get published. And our internal vision is that we have to only publish something that is worth a parent's time. No matter how hard you worked on it. If it's not worth a parent's time, do not publish it. Because you may have taken 30 hours to write it, but a parent has only 2 minutes to read it. I don't think there's anybody who's more time pressed than a parent. And again, this comes back to understanding consumer behavior, that if you understand the pain, like in internally we call that the CPP, which is your customer's pain point. If you understand your customer's CPP, you will never digress from what you're creating, because you have to understand you're not creating for yourself. And whatever product, service, content, whatever it is that creating, you're not creating for yourself. You're not creating for your investors. You are creating for your customers. And you have to have that Arjun eye on that goal to create for customer.
So that's how you came up with the name.
Yes.
Was it by happenstance or you actually brainstormed through it?
Oh, I did. It wasn't by chance. It just like, I was very clear that I wanted something which kind of came together so beautifully. And
yeah. And so how is it that a platform like yours, which is purely online, make revenue and business out of it?
So back in the day, I have to admit that first almost for a year, or not maybe a year, maybe the first 6 months, we didn't make too much money, and that was okay. We were, largely relying on, digital advertising and things like that. And at least the first 2 or 3 years of building Kidsstoppress, we had to just explain people what digital marketing is. Right? This was just about when Instagram was born, right? Like Instagram was 3 years old. It was not so big in India. People were not kind of getting it. But I was very lucky that I kind of kept innovating around that space. And, whether it was explaining, some brands latched on pretty early and some didn't. So for us, digital advertising, brand collaborations is a very big part of it. Back then, we would also do a lot of, like, you have offline pop-ups today with something which is like an online pop-up, right? Like, because we knew that people were consuming a lot on Facebook. So could we create, because I don't go to any offline events. Like, who wants to leave their baby at home and go for an outing? Because who's going to take care of the baby, right? Especially in the formative years. So I was like, okay, can we build an online pop-up? So we did something with that. Very interestingly, we started a subscription business very early on, back like 4 years into the business, where parents could get access to exclusives, and we have to understand again their consumer behavior, because a parent keeps going back to the same place again and again and again, whether it's a play area, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's whether it's a service or a product. They keep going back because there's comfort, there's familiarity, right? So I was like, how can we build repeat for that brand and build repeat at an advantage for our customers? We launched subscription back then, which we had to kind of put an end to during COVID, and then restart it in a different avatar because people weren't consuming things physically or physical spaces or play areas or restaurants as much that time. So we had to put it to a pause then, but that came back in a different avatar right now. But a large part of the revenue that comes in today is, of course, through brand partnerships that we work with, and of course through our subscription and education programs.
So what is this new avatar of subscription business that you
The new avatar of subscription business is education, where you subscribe to our courses. It could be on conscious parenting, it could be on how to raise a reader, it could be on meal plan, because the biggest struggle of a parent today is, what do I feed my child that is age appropriate, right? Like, what do I feed him in the snack box? What do I feed him as an evening snack? What goes in the lunch box? Is it nutritious? Is it healthy? What are the food substitutes? How do you cook for the whole family? That one meal is okay from a 6 to a 60-year-old, right? Because we are staying in joint families. So how can we solve that problem of the parent? So we have that, and then we have a lot on teen safety. We have a product on teen safety, which is very, very important. Because
what is that product?
Just on how addressing teen mental health and understanding red flags and signs for parents on teen suicide. Because we're seeing close to about 50 million children in India between the ages of 10 to 19 have anxiety and depression, and how can we, and only about 30% of them are seeking help. So how can we help those parents, right, understand their teenagers better? So education through subscription is the new avatar of that subscription model that we are talking about.
But this teen suicide is a very important topic that you touched upon.
Yes.
So what are some of the reasons that you're seeing for a teen suicide, and how is your platform addressing that to parents and making them aware of spotting such red flags in their teen babies?
So it is a problem. It is a growing problem. Okay, it is a growing problem that very few people want to address. What we are doing to address it is obviously spreading awareness in terms of red flags and signs on not only suicide. Most people feel that suicide is an impulse, but it's not. It's a well thought plan. The person has spent enough time, and it's a built up of a lot of things that have happened over a period of time that has led that person to take an extreme measure. It's not like one fine day I felt like, oh, I'm not feeling good about life and let me end it. That's not how it works. So how can you spot those trends? How can you build your relationship with your child that it does not reach that stage? And of course, different toolkits that we provide with parents, and we do this both through online and offline workshops as well, to make parents aware and sensitize them that these are the red signs, these are the red flags. This is and the starting point is of all of it is just building healthier relationships with your child.
But what are some of the red flags that parents should look at in their teens?
It'll be, the reason I don't want to say it out is people just take it as very prescriptive, and a conversation like this cannot be taken just because every person may react very differently.
Yeah.
Right? Some may just hide themselves in the room. They're not talking. Some may not be eating because they may be facing different sort of issues. It's irritability. It's lack of interest. It could be, spending excessive hours on a device and cutting out all human interaction. It could be many, many things, right? And for different people, it may manifest very differently. And therefore, I say that there's a structured program and a course on it. And I think when you go through it systematically is when you understand that, most people will feel that, "Arey, iski life mein to sab theek hai. She's coming first in class. She's got her own podcast. She's got this. Why would she have any problems?" Right? She's the captain of her school. She's got this, she's got that. Why would she even be sad? And if I put a couple of faces in front of you, trust me, you will not be able to identify who's actually going through anxiety and depression and who's not. Because there is no look, forms, structure to it. Anybody could be facing it. Right? And that is why it is important to understand why every flag could be different for different people.
So when you design these programs, which is a very high intensity program, I'm guessing, because
Yes.
it touches on a really sensitive topic like this. So how do you build the program? Who do you work with?
So we
on
work
this?
with experts around every single curriculum that we work with. So if it is here, we worked with a suicide therapist. We work with the National Suicide Association of India, Suicide Awareness India. We work with therapists, and from there, we work with a lot of psychiatrists to help us piece this together. So getting the right expert to bridge this for us in every way and to co-facilitate the process with us is very, very important. So we kind of build it out together, brick by brick, and then put it in a
So is there a
structure.
certification board also in this case from
For a
whom
suicide
it needs
awareness?
to be
Yes,
approved, the
there is.
video?
Sorry?
The video, is there a board which approves the video before it goes on your platform?
No, the therapists who are part of it are approved by the board.
Got it. Understood. And your way of reaching out to these people is through online
It's through the
means?
platform.
Understood. But when you started out this platform, Kidsstoppress, what were the top 3-5 main issues that you were addressing on the platform? And how did it grow basis how India was growing as a country and how our parenting styles were changing in the nation?
Right. When we started out, it was very clearly discovery, and largely in the 0 to 5 years segment where we wanted people to, that's when you'll see people peak in their questioning and seeking answers sort of space. It is once you reach that 5 to 8, you feel a little complacent and you're like, okay, I think I've got the hang of it. And then again, but we never had a teen section, or we never had an infertility section, or I never thought I would have a mental health section on the platform. But it's all evolved over a period of time because we realized that these were the growing needs of India. And it wasn't like we didn't want to have an infertility section, we just didn't have as many experts contributing, or we weren't getting as many readers who wanted to know about it, right? Or likewise for the teen segment, right? Like nobody ever spoke and nobody ever asked, and therefore it didn't exist. But we did research and we figured out that a lot of parents said that after 8, 9, I again feel lost, like I feel like I'm raising a completely different individual. So could you help? And that's when that part of the vertical sort of started.
Yeah. Well, which year was this when you started that?
We started the teen segment in 2020. Because,
recently.
there was this recent study that I read, which was so interesting. I think it was a New York Times article, which said that brain scans of girls and boys during pandemic, the girls aged 4.5 times that of boys. Because that was the impact that the lockdown had on teen girls. Teen girls would be between 11 to 18, that age group. Like they had massive social impact on them, because also girls grow much faster, right? So that 11 to 15, 16 is a very critical time for a young girl. And that brain aged 4.5 times versus that of a boy. And we saw a lot of parents suddenly hold up with their children, not knowing how to react, respond, behave, address. And we were getting a whole lot of requests on teen troubles and teen tantrums. And that's the time. And even just discovering products and services for them to buy, right? And that's the time we realized that, okay, this is something that we must start. And that's it.
So when you start a new vertical on the platform, how is it that you go about building content around it and generate business out of it? Like what are the 0 to 1 step and then 1 to 10 step in it?
So either you build it out. There are 2 ways to build it out. Either you build it out by medium, but in our case, the mediums are not mutually exclusive, right? So it's not like one content piece that appears on one may not appear on the other. It may. So we obviously didn't want to build it out because we extrapolated to every medium that we're present on. So very interesting what we did, we mapped when I come back to the CPP of that customer in every single milestone. Like just like, if you if you have a child, then you have a milestone chart for a child, right? So similarly, between the ages of any new vertical that you want to start, what is the customer pain point, and you map it down by milestone. So is it by age? Is it by milestone? Is it by timeline? Like, what's the timeline to that customer's journey, right? And we map that out and we figure those pain points out, and then we sort of populate one pain point at a time. And then we kind of use the same sort of build out strategy for every single sort of like example. When we added infertility as a segment, we again went about populating it the same way.
Got it. And have you also witnessed questions around, one child policy which China had? Do Indians also want to move towards that, or are they moving towards having no kids? What are the kind of parenting patterns y'all are observing?
Very interesting. I definitely see that people today are very conscious and they're not swayed away by, even if you've had a sibling, not necessarily that you're going to have 2 kids. People are very sure whether it's they don't want to have kids, they want to have kids, how many kids they want to have. Yes, of course, some people's opinion and point of view changes over a period of time, but I think people are quite sure of what they want to do, or some may just want to adopt. Are we seeing trends of one and done? Yes, we are. And that's also saying that, people are very conscious of how they look. Women are more conscious of wanting to go back to their careers. People are also seeing the rising economic stress on parents because everything around the child is becoming expensive, whether it's education, travel, lifestyle of the child, right? So I think that is adding an economic burden to a dual income family today. Are they seeing a significant differentiator if you have 1 child or 2? They're possibly not. They're assuming that the friends will be enough to find that substitute. So yes, we are seeing those sort of patterns where we're also seeing parents with, but what's also happening is you've got to understand that you also have the infertility ratios rising in a lot of people. So you're also seeing a whole bunch of people have 2 and 3 kids because, okay, in a doctor's never going to inseminate you with only 1 1 egg. So I think that is very important, that there are patterns, but there's also reality. You may want only 1, but the fact is that you may just end up with twins or triplets because of whatever reasons that you may have.
Yeah, but are you seeing the rise of pet parenting more now in India?
You are, but I think we're talking of the top 1% of the population in the country when we're talking of pet parents. And pet parents come in at 2 points in time. Either whether you want to have a pet before you have child, so you're prepared, which is a very Western concept, catching on very rapidly in the country. Second is, if you feel you're one and done, then you want your child to have a sibling. So you feel like, okay, let me get a pet. So after 3 or 4 years, if you're very sure you're not going to have a second child, then the parent wants to have a pet. So it's like, okay, the child has some sort of company. So that becomes a second scenario. And third, we've seen a lot of parents become pet parents when they see their kids leave for university and they become empty nesters. They just feel like, okay, I have nothing to do now. I'd rather be a pet parent. And there's, again, like I said, there's no judgment. It's just, we've seen a lot of cases of parents suddenly feeling that void. And, the maternal instinct not relaxing down any time soon. And that's the time they feel like, okay, why not?
Will you also have a pet?
I love pets, but do I want to take more responsibility? No.
After your children are abroad?
No. I'm but never say never, but right now it seems like no.
Yeah, got it. But like you said, this is one of the Western concepts being, replicated in India. Which other modern style parenting concepts are you seeing now Indian parents adopting?
I see a lot of, I see Indian parents shed their skin so easily sometimes. Like, in India, co-sleeping is such a normal thing, right? Like, we'll co-sleep because like in Bombay houses, you don't even have a separate room sometimes for a child if you're living in a joint family, right? We live in matchbox houses. Maybe the parent and the child is sharing a room, and that's okay. We've grown up like that, right? I grew up with 3 elder sisters. I was one of 4. I don't remember having a separate room for the longest time. We just had one room for the parents and one for us, and that was reality, right? Whether somebody made noise or somebody's exams were going on or whatever else was happening in life. I mean, okay, you learn to sleep with lights on, you learn to sleep with music on, you learn to sleep with sound on, like whatever, right? And somebody's studying or whatever, because that was reality. There was no option. But I do see today that, and you know, that co-sleeping with my parents gave me so much security. And I co-slept with my kids for a very long time till they were ready to sleep independently. That provides so much of security to a child. The Asians do it very differently from the Westerners. And the reason I say Asians and not Indians is because, again, in the Asian communities as well, co-sleeping is a very normal practice. They co-sleep. And co-sleeping is nothing but the parent not letting the child cry in another room till the child cries him or herself to sleep. That's not us, because...
But that happens in the Western world?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes. You let the child cry it out till they fall off to sleep, because they need to learn to fall off to sleep independently.
And this is from what age?
It could be the next day after childbirth.
Really?
Yeah, like the mother would just feed and put the child back into the nursery and let the child fall off to sleep as soon as she's finished feeding or burping and changing. She probably put, because they want the child to be raised independently. And I truly believe that when you do not cut off that umbilical cord so quickly, the connections still stay. Like, why are we, why are we so still rooted in culture and family and all of that, is because, there's this concept of no one's alienating you, right? So you always know that your parents are around, It's not a sense of abandonment that you get very early on. So I think that is a very different concept. The concept of, I think there are just so many concepts that this one kind of comes straight up on top of my head, because I see a lot of parents practicing that.
Yeah, that's so true. But this concept of nannies, I think that is also one thing which we didn't have earlier. But now we're just having like kids given to the nannies to take care of, and somehow kids are more attached to them than their own parents.
I mean, again, Radhika, no judgment for people, because today if a parent has to go out and work, you are increasingly moving to a nuclear family setup. What are you going to do? Where is the childcare in the country? Where is organized childcare in the country?
So that's...
Let's not blame the parents for everything. Let's give them some bit of credit. If you need them to go out and work and not kill their ambition, either the man or the woman, what are they supposed to do? They cannot be relying for 6 months Nani will come and 6 months Dadi will come, because grandparents today also have a life of their own, and they do not only want to take care of their grandchildren. So therefore, what does the parent do? Does the parent stop working? No. They figure out a system and an ecosystem that works effectively for them. So I'm saying it's very difficult for us. It's very easy for us to judge from the outside. But I mean, really, what is that parent supposed to do? However, what the parent can do is, while you may still have a nanny or a caregiver in your absence, to me, the question only lies is, how present are you when you are with your child, besides the nanny hours, right? Does it mean that, are we judging that just because a child is being raised by a nanny, the child is not good, right? We're judging the parent, we're judging the child.
No,
this child will not have great values because he's being judged by...
No, in your times, did you have a nanny?
I always, very, very interestingly, I am one of 4. My mom was working. My father always believed, and both my parents, that a woman should be financially independent. And he raised each one of us to be extremely educated and be financially independent. And he while my mom's a fantastic cook, he always had a cook for her and a lot of house help. So she could work and take care of the kids. He's like, let's outsource what we can. That does not compromise on our core values, right? To raising the girls correctly is important to us, and you working and feeling good about yourself is important to us. What can we outsource? And somewhere that has been such a strong influence for me. Do I have a cook? Yes, I have a cook. Do I have someone to clean? Yes, I have someone to clean. Do I have someone to put the house in order and, get things organized for my kids? Yes, I do. What can I not what have I not outsourced? I possibly not outsource connection time with my kids. If I find the time, like today, I'm just going to hop out of this podcast and go and watch her play a game of badminton. Yes, I'm going to do that. Did I outsource the pickup? Yes, I really would have loved for the time to coincide where I could also fetch her and watch the game. Unfortunately, that's not possible. So what is it that you're outsourcing? Will I take the ride back with her? That's connection. Right?
Yeah.
Have I outsourced the cooking at home? Yes, I have.
Do you face a lot of questions like these on your platform? Like, how should they balance?
Yes. Oh, mom guilt is like, I have to figure out newer answers for it.
Yeah.
Because it's a question that's so pertinent. It's something that has been repeatedly coming. And strangely, I've never felt it. Like I said very early on, I've never felt it. And my understanding of it is, as I'm reading the Gita more and more, if you think of Arjun, right? And if you think of parent guilt, Arjun had to kill in the Mahabharata. He had to kill his own people on the other side. But all he focused, and we call him the one with a focused eye, right? Yes, he was in a little bit of conundrum. That ye main kaise karunga, I'm killing my own people. But what is his karma? His karma is go and fight war to get justice. Your job is to get justice. What is on the other side and who you're going to kill is not for you to worry, because your karma and dharma is to fight war, to fight for the righteousness. Right? So I'll tell all mothers, that just look at your goals. You need to step out and get to work every single day, because you need to provide. You're no longer only a nurturer, you're also a provider. Will it make you happy to be fulfilled? Will it make you happy to be independent? Does it make you feel empowered to stand on your own 2 feet, being financially independent? That is your dharma. You've got to do that for yourself. Who is on the other side? It's not like you're killing your children. But who's on the other side? Yes, it's your kids on the other side. Are you fighting war 24/7? No. There is a period which is 8 hours of work that you fight war and you come back home. When you come back home, do justice to that part of your dharma, which is to raise your kids then. But don't be in this conundrum, because what are you doing? Then you're having energy drainers. You are neither being able to provide here, neither being able to provide here. So cut out the energy drainers from your life, because they are not serving you to progress. You have a problem. What next? And I tell this to all the parents, and I've taught this to my kids. When you are in a fix, you're in a fix now. Kuch nahi kar sakte. What's the next thing to do? So you ask yourself this very important question. What next? And the path will unfold. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, no matter how stuck you are, you will find that answer. So you're feeling guilty. Got it. Point taken. What next? How do I solve for it? Because life is about solving these challenges that are coming up in your way every single day, right? So just answer that what next to yourself. Can I leave one office 1 hour early so I miss traffic? Can I reach office 1 hour late and work into, later half of the evening because my child is at class? So I'm going to spend less time, so I can maximize time in the morning. Can I work second shift? Now today we have this luxury. Can I work 3 days from home? Like I usually plan most of my recordings or meetings on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. Tuesday, Wednesday and Friday. Because those are the longest days of school for my children. Am I guilty? No, I'm not. Because I know they're out of the house from 7:30 to 5:30. That's long working hours already. इससे ज़्यादा कितना काम करोगे? फिर थोड़ा तो balance has to be there, right?
So have you seen people change their mindset after, coming on your platform, reading what their peers are saying, what y'all are saying, and having that, satisfaction in their mind, that, or validation for that matter, that okay.
We know that so many women, and I kid you not, Radhika, we've had I do a lot of corporate training and workshops for corporates to have them to not have women drop out of the workforce. It's taken so many generations to get us to a pay parity, a career parity, an opportunity parity. Are we ready to just throw it all up in the air for this damn thing called guilt? No, we shouldn't. It's taken years and years of work for other women to get us to be here. So my point being that we do a lot of corporate workshops. I take a lot of trainings for both men and women. So how they can be fulfilled both professionally and personally and feel less guilty and not drop out of the workforce. The first 1,000 days is when we typically see women drop out of the workforce. The first 1,000 days of childbirth, right? So either it's a pregnancy complication or the first 2 years where they feel extremely guilty and they can't, the ecosystem hasn't naturally created a safe space for them to take care of the baby and themselves, not enough maternity leave, etc. The other bit of it is when we empower a lot of moms who found a need gap and they've created businesses out of it, right? We empower them through the platform by giving them a spotlight, by talking about them, by making them more discoverable, and obviously creating a space where they seek validation as well. And of course, through all the talks otherwise on the platform as well, to explain how they can get out of it, to provide a sort of toolkit that really, how can you be more productive? So we have a productivity course for moms on the platform. And second is, how can you be more effective at work in general to create an ecosystem that allows you to do both?
Which part of your business is the most revenue generating right now? Are these the courses?
Not currently the courses. Okay. It is brand collaborations, but the vision is to have courses take over very
What
soon.
kind of brand partnerships do you do?
So we work with a lot of different brands. For example, we work with, say, Meta to create awareness on teen safety, which causes that are very important and integral to us. We'll work with the Lego group to work and talk about the importance of play for children. We are working with so many. We work with Prega News on their pregnancy solution products that they have, whether it's the ovulation kit to understand when do you actually ovulate, pregnancy, the vitamins and women's health care in that space. We work with closely 150 brands across so many different categories around the year.
And which has been one of your most well-performing campaigns with the brand?
That's a great question. It's very strange. I can't pinpoint one, but I think what we did with, actually a design brand, a furniture brand, talking about the right ways of doing up your child's room decor and design. Like architect design is not my strength, but it just came out of pure play. Understanding of understanding and experience of the space. It was actually one of our best performing campaigns. Even the one that we did with Meta and child safety was very, very well received because there is no one else talking about this. There was a campaign that we actually did on, which is not along with a brand, but we did on a really interesting in-depth story on growth hormones for girls to delay puberty. And no one has carried a story like that in the country. And when we launched that story, it did fabulously well. We got a pediatrician, we got an endocrinologist, we got a pediatric endocrinologist, we got a homeopath, we got parents, we got so many different stakeholders talking about why they're doing what they're doing and what is the long-term impact. And parents could not believe that, oh my God, like we didn't have any knowledge that this even exists, and what we can do with this, and what could be the long-term side effects of this. So very, very diverse.
And like, what kind of viewership have these ads received?
It would be, some would be close to 1 million, some would be like just talking about, we did something with Prega News right now where we roped in close to 100 influencers in, down south across 6 different markets. And we hosted the whole event and conceptualized the whole bit with them. And it was very interesting to see how every market behaves very differently. And I think we garnered a digital reach of close to about 30 million organically on that campaign.
What was so special about that campaign?
I think when you give people the freedom to share their experience, it becomes very, very interesting. We did another very interesting campaign with a Japanese diaper brand called Mary's, where we said that, that one moment which is so important in a mother's life is the day she gives birth to a child. And let's make her relive that moment. And it's called My Birthing Story. And every woman wants to kind of share that. And we kind of synced that story. And some had great experiences, some had traumatic experiences. And every woman's experience was so different. And when we shared that, it did brilliantly well. I think this was back in 2018 or so. And back then we managed to get a reach for them close to, I think, about 3 million.
On YouTube?
And all organically. This was all on Instagram.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
And how do these brands reach out to you? Is it
it's all organic. We've been and built the ecosystem. Like I said, the first 3 years of building Kidsstoppress, I was possibly building the highways, educating brands and brand managers that digital bhi koi cheez hai, experiment karke dekho. Today, the narrative has changed. Like, okay, they want to experiment, but what are the avenues of how they can experiment, right? Like, do they want to do it through a podcast? Do they want to do it through an offline event? Do they want to do it through an educative session? Do they want to do it pure play video? Do they want to do search? So it depends on driving a customer from what's the brand's objective? Is it awareness, consideration, or consumption? Sometimes they're very start of their funnel, and we'll say, okay, so our journey begins at building awareness, taking the user from awareness to consideration, and then from consideration to consumption. So different ideas at different stages of the brand's journey is very, very important.
Got it. I think so. You are also now a platform which also does influencer marketing for brands in a way.
Only mom influencers. So we have close to about 1,600 odd mom influencers on the platform. And it's so amazing how brilliantly it's all built out. And I'm so proud, Radhika, that, as a category, we were not even recognized. And when I say we, as in like the parenting and childcare community never shows up at any awards. Whether it was the National Creator Award, whether it's any of the magazine awards or entrepreneurship awards, or, just about like recently there was some sort of Bharat Times Creator Awards or whatever. Why? Like, why is it an absentee category? Beats me. Like, are you kidding me? Like, when you have 30 million children being born every single year in this country, are you going to ignore such a big category? And a category which is actually shaping the future of the country. Let's see what happens when moms go on strike.
Yeah. Has it happened ever in any of the countries?
No.
No?
It's so unfortunate. I really wish that people just recognize that it's a very important category. And I think the word on the category is slowly playing out now. Like, how can you ignore a category this big? Because everybody between the ages of 28 to 45, right, which is a large part of our country's population today, I think at least 95% of the people are going to go through that journey. It is a recession-proof industry. People are going to have more children. People are going to continue to have children, forget more or less, right? You're never going to stop spending on your child. You may cut corners for yourself, but you will never cut corners on your child. Because every parent's underlying belief is, I want to give the best to my child. The best could be subjective. From an auto wala to a Shah Rukh Khan, that could completely, that may be the best, may be subjective. But दिमाग भी वही है. I want to give the best to my child. मेरे हैसियत में है, उतना मैं दूंगा, पर मैं अपने बच्चे को अपने से ज्यादा दूंगा. So how can this category be ignored?
So when did you start seeing this category come in limelight?
Oh, I think the last 5 years. I think we're slowly, as we're building as a force and more people are joining the force, I feel like, it's become a category now. But,
are there any other platforms like yours in India?
So I think many came and fizzled out.
Why?
Or they could not last the marathon, or they chose a different path, or they were like I said, or they chose a different path, or they were bought over, or there were strategic investments in each of these. So different players came into the space. Did anybody last it out this long? Perhaps no.
So what does it take to last more than a decade in this industry?
I think couple of things, right? One is the founder may lose interest, because when it's a marathon, the founder may lose interest. You're not building for the community, you're building for the investors, right? It could also be about perhaps you have stagnated in the space that you are in. Or it could be COVID, right? Which is advertising businesses did take a hit. It could have been that. And sometimes it's just about the ability to scale up, right? And you don't have a pulse on the market. Sometimes you invest a lot ahead of times. You're not agile and nimble. So businesses fail for various reasons. Sometimes you've raised too much capital and you're not being able to generate revenue at that pace.
You raised capital?
Yes, we did. We did in 2016.
Oh, from whom?
We had a clutch of angel investors that we raised from.
Yes.
And we've been profitable since then. So we've not had the need to go back after. And obviously the business was growing organically. And obviously, like I said, it needed a certain sense of focus and time and dedication. So we're like, okay, let's streamline this and build a runway where we're not constantly in this hamster wheel of, okay, capital burn, that sort of.
And at that point in time, when you raised funding in 2016, what was it for?
So, in our businesses, it's very interesting that when we work with a lot of brands, it was a cash flow problem because the brands pay us only after 90 to 120 days.
Correct.
So it was essentially to bridge that cash flow. And once you've bridged that, and I think one of the most important metrics in a business is your cash flow.
Yeah.
You can never, ever lose eye on that. Because
so did you raise debt or equity?
Equity.
Why didn't you raise debt?
Tough question. It were different goals that time that we had and different goals today. So that seemed like a more lucrative option back then versus where we are today.
As in, that seemed right at that point in time.
Yes.
Because usually just for the working capital, people raise debt since they
Yes, we could have, but we wanted to grow it at a different level, at a different scale. We thought like things would pan out differently, and we thought like it wasn't just this that we wanted to do. The different plans, right? So like I said, at that time, that seemed like the right thing to do for what our vision was, and our visions realigned and recalibrated, seeing how the economy and the parenting economy especially has shaped up. So like I said, that seemed like a more lucrative option back then.
So back then you might be having an offline expansion also in your radar?
No, not really.
No? What was the vision like back then? Which got changed?
Back then it was crazy. Like everybody was so crazy about the app downloads. And everything, just get the customer on the phone, just get the customer on the phone. So I think we preempted that jump, and for that you needed to be really, really cash rich, because because the burn would be that much more at that point in time. And it wasn't just bridging cash flow, it was bridging cash flow plus, right? And therefore equity. So I think as we realize that the real estate on that phone, it takes a lot to bring somebody back, and building a community versus a community, and riding on a community that already exists, building a community all over again when somebody's already doing that very efficiently didn't kind of materialize very well. And we saw that, okay, this is, we'll never be able to get it to, it's not a need. Like, it's not like your Uber or Swiggy, which is a need-based app, right? So then we stopped chasing that infinite target of app downloads, and we said, this is not the way we want to go.
So do we have the app?
No, we don't have the app.
Oh. We never built an app.
We built a hybrid app, and then we realized this is not something that the user was really coming to. They were consuming. See, also the consumer behavior and the patterns of consumption changed so much. Like, let me ask you a counter question. Are you going on to Times of India every day? Do you have the app?
No news app I have. Zero.
Right? Information. But versus, unless you're building for, and see, the media industry went through a very different, unless you're doing very in-depth long-form journalism like a New York Times or an Atlantic or a Wall Street Journal or a BBC, you are not going to, there is so much for you to consume that you're not working on a dedicated space alone. Like, I subscribe to the Ken and the Morning Context and all of these other publications. Do I hop onto their app every single day? No.
But InShorts changed the game.
InShorts changed the game, and where are they in the game?
Yeah, but still people have them.
Yeah, they may have it, but today you are consuming media and content very differently. So was it worth investing in that early on? No.
How did you realize that it won't be worth?
Because I saw consumers consume more time on a social media platform versus coming to you on a dedicated
app.
You're not even consuming content today on a web platform so much. You are consuming it on WhatsApp.
Correct.
Right? So today we want to own the WhatsApp real estate in the consumer, on the consumer's phone, right? We want them to be on our WhatsApp database versus anything else.
So how many communities do you have on your WhatsApp?
We don't have communities on WhatsApp. We basically have a news dissemination or content dissemination. So we will have our courses where we have support groups for every single course that we run, and different cohorts that run on it. And of course, for cohorts like this sort of cohort is only interested in teen content. This is interested in food content. So we have communities like that.
Got it.
So we have close to about 250,000 people as a WhatsApp database. Not everybody may be part of every cohort, but they may be part of a general cohort as well, where we don't have more accurate data on their consumption pattern. But I think it's very important for someone to be intuitive enough and understand where their consumer is going. Right?
Yeah.
Today, like I said, I subscribe to all of these reading platforms, right? Long form is becoming a struggle for all of us. Like just the other day we were discussing that it is a struggle to read long form. We're so used to short form content and where are we consuming it? We're not consuming it on any other app. Like, think of your last 5 most used apps. Tell me.
Uber, Zepto, WhatsApp, Instagram, LinkedIn.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Right? And likewise, right? That's what we're using. So to me, it was very early on that I'm going to burn marketing dollars on getting this customer. This customer is not going to stick with me.
Correct.
Right? Because this customer is not coming to me dedicatedly because he's consuming content somewhere else.
Yeah.
And if we see a whole bunch of global brands that were also built in this space, or Indian brands that were built in this space as communities, they couldn't last that because they spent a lot of money just burning on customer acquisition, ignoring social media as an easy, low-hook customer acquisition platform.
But would these consumers download the app if they have a community to go back to and chat with them there?
No, They wouldn't. But the fact is, Radhika, what I'm trying to explain is that it's very hard for me or for any founder to pull you out of an Instagram today.
Yeah.
It's a habit. It's an addiction. I'm pulling you. Why am I spending so many dollars on getting you out of it when I can actually make you consume it even more?
So these apps like Baby Chakra and all, they did
Where are they?
I mean, they got acquired.
Yeah. And then...
I mean, they didn't go to the IPO. But, so you're saying these apps which are community-led only, they are not doing that well?
I don't know how they're doing because I'm not focusing on how they're doing. I'm focusing on how I want to build out my business.
But generally speaking, you think that is not a very good business model to have?
If it works for you, like for every business has a different unique business model, right? If it works for you, it's great.
Yeah.
Right? And I think we lay so much emphasis on raising capital and acquisition, not knowing the story behind
the
that.
why.
We're glorifying raising capital to being, it's great. If your business needs it, it's great. And one should glorify it. But if your business does not need it? Is acquisition the final game for any brand?
What is like your final game with Kidsstoppress?
Tough question. I don't know at the moment, but I would definitely want it to have a more global power play because I don't think parents think very differently.
Yeah.
I think more and more parent and child relationships are going to be strained. There is an information overdose. There is paradox of choice. So parents are going to struggle. They're going to find it more and more confusing of how to raise because of the way we are more outward looking in terms of what the West is doing, what the world is doing. I want to do that. Like we're adopters as Indians, and I'm waiting for Indians to pivot to being more inward looking. And I hope that happens soon. So to me, I feel like there is so much more scope in terms of how Asian parents consume, how Indian parents outside of India consume. What are their confusions? Like we get a lot of readers from Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, pockets of UK, US, consuming us, and they're like, okay, this is a game saver. You know, our meal plan subscription, we find so many subscribers surprisingly from Australia.
Australia?
Yeah. Like
how did it reach there?
Yeah, I don't know why. We have so many parents on our book club where we have a lot of parents subscribing to us from the Middle East, right? From Dubai and Abu Dhabi and all of that. And maybe it is the growing Indian community in the UAE that wants their kids to read more Indian authors, to be more familiar with the fact that you know what their culture is, what they have to offer versus just reading classics, which you know may or may not have relevance or is not the only thing a child needs to read.
Yeah. Well, you spoke about this dietary preferences and you had a book actually on 50 Indian meals.
Yes.
So you talked about what should parents give to their child in their, you know, lunch boxes.
Yes.
Which most people really get confused with that what is the right meal. So if you were to give like a summarized answer to us on how should parents, you know, give food to their children in their lunch boxes, what should they involve?
So I always believe that you need to, there are different kinds of family styles and different kinds of way you can do this, right? Either it's a kid-focused family, it's a parent-focused family, or it's a family-focused family. We're a family-focused families, and I think it's a great way of being because then it's less painful for whoever's doing the organizing, right? And why I say that is in my house, and I really wish for all the parents who are planning their meals, is that you just got to cook one or two things and not something for a 6-year-old, something for a 6-month-old, something for a 60-year-old, and something for a 40-year-old, because you're going to have no permanent cook and the cook is going to run away, right? Or the woman of the house, or the man of the house, whoever's cooking is going to go nuts because you can't have 4 meals and you're going to have so much wastage. So how can you make it work for the entire ecosystem, right? And therefore, the way we plan our meals is, and for everyone, couple of hacks: make sure that you do it over the weekend. Make sure that you do it on a Saturday. You plan your strengths and weaknesses. Today, I have not planned something that that needs supervision or me. Because I'm going to reach home only at 6:30 when dinner needs to be ready. I plan basis what my cook can cook and she can do a good job of it, minimal intervention. Today there's palak paneer for dinner. She does not need my help. I can tell you what is there. So plan your meals over the weekend. Plan the groceries that go along with it. Plan easy and hard days. When I mean by easy days I'm traveling, I'm not fussed. I will give out those easy foods on those days, and I travel a lot. So example, if it is a pancake or it is a rosti or it is cereal or it is poha, things that they like, or if there's pasta being made or there's pav bhaji, they are made on days that are supposed to be easy days. Mom's not around or dad's not around, right? Or it's a rushed meal. So we do that. There are difficult days where a loki turai something needs to be made because mom is around and mom will take the effort to feed, right? So we plan those meals strategically because I know what my next week looks like. I know what my next week after looks like. So I would plan my meal accordingly. Like I know that I had a 9 a.m. start today, 8:30 a.m. and I knew that there's going to be a rushed morning, rushed breakfast. So we all know our calendars well in advance. So it was planned over the weekend that, okay, today we're going to just go with toast. There's just going to be bread and sandwich in the morning because everybody can do it quickly and it's done.
Okay.
So if you plan strategically, so if you look at your calendars and your weak spots as a parent, whoever's the primary caretaker, if it's the mom or the dad, just look at your week and map that with your child's week. Very important. Give in the easy ones on hard days, right? Look at days that you can help, look at days you can't help. The days you can't help, keep it simple. Number 3, that make sure that you have a fair balance of nutrition into your meals. Make sure that you plan out your meals out of home very well, because it's so easy to do that Swiggy in and Swiggy out so easily that you don't want to get, because when you drop on a hunger scale from 1 to 10, if you drop below 5, you're going to take an impulsive decision, right? Don't ever reach that, right? Keep yourself well nourished and hydrated and satiated, that you don't make an impulsive choice in a meal. So we know the days that we're going to eat out. We've eaten out over the weekend. Okay, we're going to balance it out through, because it's very easy these days to eat out and not eat home cooked food, right? Also, number 5 is buy your groceries in advance, because your meals are planned basis that, right? Every bit of it, which is, if you want to eat clean, you've got to pre-prep. So in terms of sauces, chutneys, soaking, sprouting, all of that is done for us over the weekend, so that we can enjoy the benefits through the week. And so weekends are actually very chaotic in our homes because we plan a lot up
Do you
ahead.
sell these meal plans also as subscriptions?
Oh yes, it's a big part of our community, big part of our community. And it actually came out of, again, a very human problem that I had. Like, my cook would come and ask me while I'm on a call every single day at 5 p.m, Bhabhi, aaj khane mein kya hai? And I would just sometimes want to kill either myself or my cook and say, I don't know, bhai, tumko jo banana hai banao. Right? Like that's and the other guilt that I had was, I didn't know what my kids were eating in their dabba when I was a working mom. Right? Like, I wanted to be in control. I wanted to make sure that they're eating right. And I was like, that can only happen if I plan and prep and make sure that there is alignment. And that way, very importantly, you also start learning to respect every member in the household. So somebody wants to eat pani puri someday. I was like, no problem. Why don't you go and write it on a wish list? So we have a wish list on our refrigerator, and everybody, whatever they feel like eating, if it's possible to try and tweak it, and if it's like a really big craving, we'll see. But if it needs prep and planning, it cannot be done. Then it gets added to the next week's meal plan. So automatically you're feeding the funnel of ideas in any case, right? So it becomes much easier.
So how many subscribers do you have for your meal plan?
I think The book, we've been on Amazon when we launched in March 2020 for almost 6 weeks till Amazon was delivering. We were on #1 for food and encyclopedias. So the book alone did, I think, close to about 5,500 copies in those 6 weeks alone, which is great for a book number because people don't read a lot. From our subscription basis, I think we're close to about 3,000 odd subscribers on our meal plans, month on month, that it progresses.
What's the most common question that you get asked for meals from the parents?
Is junk food okay? Like, how many times should I give junk food to my child?
Then what's the answer you give?
So, I mean, technically, like, I just want them to know that it's still junk food, right? Like, it is food that's high in sugar or, it's processed or whatever. So it's got to be as limited as possible. So there's no right answer. It's just how much you can curb very early on and how many habits and boundaries you can form very early on and empower your child to minimize those choices. Because at some point in time, your child is going to flee and you're going to realize that, okay, this is, they're going to make independent decisions. I mean, today, if you're watching all those, like my daughter's 16, and if you're watching those K-dramas, there's no way you're not going to eat ramen and feel so like consumed by that whole K-culture, K-pop, and you're going to eat that. But can you minimize that in once in 3 months or once in 6 months to eating it like literally every weekend, which I don't understand.
Yeah. But does that answer solve their problem?
Yes, it does, because they realize that sometimes, and also parents are quite hypocritical because we'll be like, okay, you can have it when I am busy, or you can have it when I give it to you, but you can't have it when you want to have it. So those double standards don't work. You give it when it works for the both of you. You don't give it according to your convenience.
Got it. And what's the most common question asked by parents generally on your platform?
I think one is mom guilt, which I think a lot of them face. One is about junk food, screen time. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like it's an epidemic waiting to become a pandemic. It's just waiting. It's just there.
What do people ask about screen time?
How do I limit my child's screen time? We have children under 2 who should not be consuming screens at all, consuming screens.
But don't you think that's the parents' fault, that they are exposing their child to the screen?
It is, but no parent wants to believe that they're at fault.
Did you give your children the screen time?
I was very lucky, and I'm so grateful that my kids were born at a time where screen time wasn't at the stage that it is today. And also, I was very conscious that I co-consume screen with my kids. And when you co-consume, it's about connection and conversation and not about consumption alone, right? Even today, like I watch a lot of stuff with my kids. I watch shows that they watch. We have a conversation around it. We talk about movies that we watch, or talk about shows that we watch. And I think that makes a huge. We watch documentaries together. It's. And very early on, I think screen was never used as an ideal babysitter. It was used as a way of learning. I'm not against screens. I cannot be, because I possibly know that after children born after 2011, 2012, I don't think they're learning out of textbooks. I think the generation before that was possibly the last generation learning out of textbooks, and now everybody's learning out of YouTube. I feel YouTube is a bigger school than any other school in the world. But the point is that how are you using that digital medium? And that's what I keep telling parents. Please be careful of the pace of animation, the color of animation, the language that is being used in the shows that they're watching, the messaging that they're watching, right? All of these are formed so important. We get so many parents who will be like, oh, my child has stumbled upon a wrong video. What should I do now? But people don't even create a kid's account. And then they're like, the kid is watching on your account, and then they don't even set up a child account, right? So YouTube doesn't even know that this child is under 13 or it's a child's account, to show them that, okay, you cannot watch explicit content.
Yeah.
they're co-consuming it on your platform, which is not okay. On Netflix, I don't know if parents, and this is the kind of information that we share, right? Like how many parents have built different profiles for their children. And it's not only sexual content that is explicit, right? Like example, it could be violence, it could be language, it could be so many different types of content, right? Like example, Delhi crime. I mean, I don't think my kids should be seeing it at all. Because it is traumatizing, right? And they should not even, and Netflix doesn't know because you and your child are watching it on the same account. So they don't even know. So your search or your top 10 shows or, okay, if you like this show, the recommendation, your child should not even be seeing that cover because you're forgetting that we're curious beings. Today, if your child just clicks on it, boom, you're gone. So I think just that level of awareness, and that's why they need to follow people like us, because education will help you be a more informed parent, right?
But I'm sure that through these information pieces, you're changing the parental behavior also in some way and influencing their choices. So what kind of testimonials do you get from these parents who read your content? Have they told you that, you've changed something in them through which their relationship with
so many
children have developed?
And it gives me goosebumps sometimes to think, so if you go to my Instagram, Radhika, there's a folder called Feel Good on my highlights.
Okay.
And I think it's very important for each one of us to have that either as highlights on our Instagram, or I even have a Feel Good folder on my photos album. Because sometimes as people who are constantly creating or building, or just anybody, right, we question, why am I doing this? Why should I be doing this? Right? Like, am I even creating an impact? And that's the time I go back to this feel good folder when I question my why. And I go back and I see that that's the kind of impact that we've created. So the impact could be, you've changed a parent-child relationship forever. We know of parents who are abusing and fully aware that they've been abusing their children. But they were not in control and they were mentally sick and they needed therapy. They've gone back to therapy. They've been open to the idea. So many women who face postpartum depression never spoke about it on the platform. And we've had so many millions of women talking about, shit, I didn't even know I had postpartum. I thought I was the only one. Women fail to recognize themselves after they lose themselves to motherhood because there are just so many changes that are happening to you.
How did they recognize that they were going through
so
this?
It came through content, whether you say, we shared this video which we shot with Sameera Reddy where she spoke of postpartum depression. We put out signs of postpartum depression, that these are the signs and red flags. If you're feeling it, on 10th of October, that is World Mental Health Day, we're actually releasing a guide on the best therapists in the country for postpartum depression for women. Because India sees a lot of women face postpartum depression. I'm not sure the exact number, but maybe you can just add that. Is
India like the highest in witnessing?
I don't think so, but maybe shared by population numbers we would be, but I'm unsure of that number. But maybe you can just add that as a super when you edit this. But very interestingly, when we shared that one story and the statistics, we saw a barrage of women flooding our comments saying, thank you for sharing this. I did not even know I had it. I did not know why I'm feeling what I'm feeling.
So what are some of the signs of a postpartum depression?
It could be irritability. It could be not feeling love for your child. It could be constantly body shaming. You could be suicidal. You could be thinking of ending your life. You could be thinking of ending both the lives of yourself and your child. I know somebody who was 6 weeks postpartum has actually killed, and I know this person personally, where the mother has killed both herself and the baby.
How? How did they do it?
She just drowned the baby and killed herself.
Oh, shit.
And we don't even know that this is happening. You don't know. You don't know what is happening to you. So it could be a whole, and like I said, everybody's symptoms and signs are different. And people are not open to reaching out for help.
But why do people kill their child in themselves?
Because
like what goes into them?
They just don't feel the love for the child, or they believe that this child is the reason why they're feeling this way. it's blaming it on something, right? We are so used to like everything that's happening bad in my life. Who's to be blamed? I can't be blamed for it.
But why do they kill themselves also in the process?
Because they don't feel worthy. You don't feel worthy of yourself. Imagine being and it's very normal to feel that. Let's not question why people feel that. You've been a size 6, you've been a size 8, and suddenly you're a size 16. You look at yourself every single day in the mirror and you don't feel worthy. You don't feel worthy of love. You don't feel worthy of who you are. You don't feel worthy of anything. I mean, if you don't feel worthy of love from yourself, that's it. You're negative self-talking every single day.
Have you seen this happen with a lot of supportive families and husbands also?
Oh, yes, of course.
Oh.
Of course. It could even be, where a child is differently abled and the family is not come to conclusion, right? The family is not supportive of it. The husband, even if he's very, very progressive, may take a lot of time to come to terms with it. And the wife is, struggling to make things happen and get things going, but the partner is not. So it becomes extremely difficult, and you may seek mental health help even then.
My God, I didn't even know about this problem. I think that's the kind of awareness that you are creating through your platform, and it's very much needed. But what are some of the other issues that you're seeing parents face in their journey of parenting?
It could be many. It could be not being aligned with your partner. It could be not being aligned with a child, inability to cope up, inability to stay relevant, inability to stay relevant at work, inability to compete with male counterparts at work, right? It could be lack of information that they're facing with, with what's happening around them because they're so consumed either by work. We see a lot of women break down. They don't even know that they have a problem because it's just lack of sleep or lack of ability to self-care, or it could be just be anything, right? Because it's paucity of time that we're really speaking of. And the ability to just accept yourself in your newer avatar, it's very hard.
Yeah.
It's just very, very hard. Am I the same Mansi who was when she was 27 and gave birth to her first child? No, I'm not. Am I the same body? No, I'm not. Is it harder for me to accept who I am today? Mentally, much stronger. Physically different? Of course, yes.
But, looking at these celebrity videos where they are pregnant and then post-pregnancy, they're back to their shapes.
Yeah.
Of course, it's real, but people, how are they able to do it?
I'm sure it must be a lot of pressure, Radhika. It must be. Like, I was just looking at, this video of Alia Bhatt, and while I love her. I just absolutely love her. She's gorgeous. And I think she's a fabulous business brain, more, and an equally good actor. But to look this good 2 years into post-pregnancy, I understand it's your profession, but to look even this good 1 year after childbirth, I mean, I'm sure she's worked her ass off, but it does give goals to different people very differently because some people may not reach that journey. Yeah. And it's not her fault. It's absolutely not her fault because everybody has different goals and everybody's body is different and everybody's body responds to exercise and everybody's not doing what she's doing, right? I'm sure she's zipping her mouth and exercising like crazy in spite of her schedule, right? But to be that, but the world does not know that. So yes, is social media adding on to that pressure? Of course it is adding on to that pressure. But it is also upon us to not take that pressure because we need to understand I'm not Alia Bhatt. I'm not an actor. I'm not paid to look good. Right? I'm somebody who's maybe, in a normal case, I'm somebody who's an accountant or who's a chef or maybe a teacher or whatever that case may be, right? And I'm getting paid for that. So I need to upskill myself in that while taking care of my body. So I think let's have realistic expectations even of ourselves. Let's not blame social media for everything. Everything bad in life cannot be social media.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure a lot of people might be having questions on these also. Like,
100%.
Like
100%.
How do we get the celebrity figure after,
Totally.
Yeah. Well, you spoke of the cultural differences also from the Western world and in India, but within India only we have 28 states and different cultures around. So, what kind of differences have you seen in the parenting styles within India, in rural areas versus urban areas, and different states as well?
So, when I do a lot of the talks that I do in terms of schools and, meeting parents from all different parts of the country, recently when I was at a talk for a school in Kanpur, and it was my first time in that state, and I realized that the pressures that the kids there have in terms of competitive government exams, whether it's a UPSC or the IAS or the NEET and the JEE, and versus that in a Gujarat or versus that down south, it's very different.
Yeah.
उन बच्चों को वो pressure ही नहीं है. They don't have those, like there in Kanpur, the kids, the only goal that they have is to clear those competitive exams. They were made, they're made to study. Like the goal of your education is those competitive exams. Versus in the Western region, you will not find that.
Right.
Versus in Punjab, it's a completely, when I did a talk in Chandigarh, it was completely different.
What were they trained for? Military?
No, it was not military. It was it was very different in terms of, a slightly more affluent audience, a slightly more audience who's slightly more abundant, but also like maybe it was and they're kids, right? So let's not disregard that. But it was more about peer pressure, and it was more about or when it is down west, I mean, when it is the Western region, it is more about I don't want to join my family business, or I want to do this, but my father says I should do this because I have to join the family business. So it's a very, very different sort of setup. When we're looking at down south, it's very different because they're very community based, culturally, and very important from that standpoint. So every part of India brings together a very, very different bit, right? I was in Jaipur recently, and again the whole bit on culture was very strong. Like the grandparents feel like the schools are not teaching them a lot on culture. There was a lot of family bit like, okay, I want to raise my children like this, but my family wants to raise my children like this, and there are no sort of boundaries, right? Or raising kids in joint family system. We don't get that a lot in the West. So it's very, very different. Culturally, it's just very, very different.
Yeah. And do you think, and this is a question that you might be getting on your platform also, that the kids who are also raised with their grandparents, they're brought up in a different way, they're more culturally oriented than the ones who are not?
Not really. But yes, we do get questions like, okay, so my child is, if you're being raised in a tier 2 town, and okay, my child is thinking in Hindi and not thinking in English, so does that still hold relevance? Will he be left out? Is he still competitive? And I was like, thinking and thoughts are not limited by language, right? They can be explained through art, and they could be explained through music, and they could be explained through whichever language, right? Today, language is no longer a barrier. Today, your Apple Watch is going to soon tell you, I mean, it's already telling you that, okay, if you just say, tell me this in Japanese, it'll give you written text and voice, so you can play it out and say, how do I take right? And it'll play that back, and I can show it to you, and you can tell me how to take right. So where are we talking of language, right? So I don't think so.
But do people ask you about the role of grandparents?
They do.
Affect in parenting?
They do, but it's not the most dominant question.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. And in terms of, different parenting styles of that of a father versus a mother, what questions do you usually get from the male side and the female side?
Fathers typically ask us more like, how can I support my wife? Or, what do I do with my child? Fathers struggle to find things to do with their kids. They don't know. And I find it so strange sometimes when, and I just see even people in my building, right? Like you're just going to a park or you're going to for a walk. Like, I don't understand, why does the father, child and the nanny need to go? You're just going for a walk, or you're just taking your child to the park. Like, what are three people going to do? Like, aren't you capable of taking care of your child? Even if you're driving, you just put your child in the car seat, right? And then you walk with your child. Like, why is it like why is it suddenly become a family of 5? Right? It is just so strange.
Yeah.
So we feel like fathers especially are struggling to know what to do with their child. Like, we get a lot of fathers asking, can you suggest games I can play with my kids? Or can you tell me places I can visit with my kids? And we tell them the places don't really, like, it's not like you have to go to the newest attraction. While obviously you will find that on Kidsstoppress. Like, just this morning, we posted about a new museum that is opened, in South Bombay, and we've spoken about that. But my point is that what's the struggle? It could be a bookstore, it could be a walk on the beach, it could be a walk on Marine Drive, it could be a walk anywhere, right? Or it could be just be a simple game of hide and seek, or it could just be a play date at a park.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why is it so complicated? Or it's about reading stories, or if you don't want to read a story, create your own. Right? Like, why is it so hard to imagine?
Yeah.
Like, trust me, and I really compete with my husband on this. I will read out the best books and, prep for it and, research so much about, this author, what is this book? Like, figure it out. And, it was, rated here as the best book or rated here as the best book. And this one is recommended and all of that. And my husband, he's got an incredible sense of humor, and he will come out with these crazy characters. Called Raju, and like something, the giraffe, and he'll come up with such random stories. I'm so envious that how does he come up with these crazy ass stories for my kids? And then I'm like, I can't think like this, right? And my kids, like my daughter is 16 and she's like, oh my God, dad and his Raju the giraffe stories. And I'll be like, oh my God, they remember those, right? But yeah, so that's funny, right? Like parents just need to be creative with their kids. So fathers struggle what to do with their kids and how they can support their wives. And moms typically, I think they constantly are feeling, I am not doing enough. And my message to all the moms is, how much is enough? You define how much is enough for you and your family. How much is enough for the rest of the world is not your enough. And stop like guilt tripping yourself over it.
Yeah, absolutely. But you also spoke about your corporate training workshops, and you said that, within 1,000 days, most women drop out after becoming a parent. What are some key reasons to that? And then what change do you create in your workshops that might shift their mind towards staying back in the workforce?
That is such an incredible question. So the reason that women drop out within the first 1,000 days is because, like I said, lack of childcare or organized childcare, lack of empathy from their employer, lack of ability to cope up with both of them, or the inability to provide, like some mothers continue to breastfeed for a longer period of time, and employers are giving only up to 6 months of mat leave, which, by the way, guys, is fabulous if you compare it to a lot of other countries in the world. We're in for a treat with getting 6 months of mat leave. You are now post-COVID, which also means that you have a work from home option, which a large part of us did not have when we were raising our kids, right? That option didn't even exist. Nobody knew that you could work from home as well, right? I think it's also about feeling guilty because you feel like suddenly the child is very responsive. It's not a physical need only of eat, sleep, poop that you are fulfilling. You're also fulfilling a larger need, which is of play, which is of interaction, which is of love, which is of stimulation with the child. And that is being fulfilled by somebody else. It could be a caretaker, it could be a grandparent, it could be an aunt, it could be your partner. And that insecurity, that what if my child gets closer to that person more than me? And why does all this happen? This happens because I am brooding from an identity crisis as a new mother. I feel my only identity is I am a mother and therefore. I want everybody to rephrase that statement to I'm a woman, I'm a professional, and I'm also a mother along with all of these. Or I'm a mother who's also a professionally driven woman. Right? I cannot disregard all the other roles in my life. And I tell this to all the women. क्या आप बहन बनना छोड़ देते हो? क्या आप माँ बनना, क्या आप बेटी बनना छोड़ देते हो? क्या आप एक wife बनना छोड़ देते हो? Then why? Why does this one part of it get a beating in your life? Why does this one role see a beating? And what we teach them is drawing boundaries and communication. Explaining conflict management both at work and at home, understanding who am I and the purpose of parenting, because that is very important. Because if you're defining purpose of parenting is only raising a child by being physically present, that's not purpose of parenting. Who am I? I'm not just a mother. And identifying that very early on. So, like I said, drawing boundaries, conflict management, purpose of parenting and who I am, learning how to communicate and conflict management. These are the 4 or 5 things that we focus on. And then, of course, we empower them with toolkits of how they need to go back into the workspace and keep themselves relevant, updated, and learn to draw boundaries and communicate very, very early on.
What are these toolkits like?
So toolkits will be just to, help them work on themselves and
like
explain.
Is it like a video?
No, it's not a video. It's like some of the tools that we teach them, right? Where we teach them how to do each of these and understand the purpose, right? To make sure that they can go back in a more empowered state and not feel guilty all the time and not drop out of the workforce.
Like, can you give an example of a toolkit?
Oh, you're just sabotaging my corporate workshop right now.
Not at all. I'm just wanting to get a flavor of it so that you get more people to attend your workshop.
I love that. But, but a simple toolkit is, like I said, Radhika, it's just about understanding that my purpose of existence is not just this. It could just be drawing boundaries in terms of communication, of understanding. Sometimes they're activities. Okay. It's about understanding how much baggage do you carry at work. And how much baggage do you take back home? And we do that through physical activities. We do that through the labels that you give yourselves, right? At work and at home, right? To understanding how you can strip those labels off and feel more fulfilled as an individual and as a professional, to communicate boundaries and availabilities that I am going to, and simple tools of time management tools, right? Like available from 9 to 5, 5 to 7 not available, 7 to 8 yes, and saying no. Women find it so hard to say no, right? How can we say, and how can we not feel less off if we're asking for more time or a bit more of flexibility or leniency? Not saying I don't want more work. I will still do the same amount of work, but with a little bit of a tweak on my timing. And that's okay. And building empathy bridges. We do a lot of activity between a subordinate and their reporting managers to create more empathy, right? And how can a reporting manager create a more conducive work environment for their subordinates to ensure that they're more comfortable and they're more productive. Because at the end of the day, what do you want? You want your employee to be more productive. If you remove those, imagine just sitting on this chair. What if I stuffed it with so many cushions that you didn't have place to sit? And you were like, okay, wobbling, and you're going like this, and you're going like this, and then you're like, okay, straight, okay, back, okay, this is too stiff, let me go a little left. What if I removed all those uncomfortable cushions and made it like this chair, which is just so perfect? Imagine you recording this podcast when I'm uncomfortable. What if the AC temperature was an 18? We would have both frozen. Could we align at a temperature which was like 24, 25, where I'm comfortable, you're comfortable? Do you think we could have got a better podcast? It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Are you feeling cold?
No.
Okay. I thought you must be.
But you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Like, imagine the little Goldilocks story.
Yeah.
Right? The porridge was too hot, the porridge was too cold. Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
Yeah.
How do you make it just right for your subordinate?
Right. When did you start the corporate training vertical?
It was started early on last year.
Year.
Soon after I became early 2023. Soon after I qualified to be a conscious parent coach.
And how do you qualify for that? What is
there is a institute where, and there are many different parenting styles and certifications, but to me this one resonated the most, and it's run by this lady in the US called Dr. Shifali, and she runs this entire institute, which is the Conscious Parenting Institute. And for me, that form of being and raising and nurturing seemed the most natural. And so, and then...
How long did it take for you to complete the course?
Don't even ask. I don't know. I think it took me like 9 months, maybe like 300 to 400 hours. 9 triads, which means that 9 papers to write, sitting in on different sessions and sitting with people and then getting those papers checked. It was a grueling experience.
Is that how your second book also shaped up?
No, my book shaped up much before. My book actually shaped up in COVID.
Okay.
And it's a freak case where, sometimes you want to do things, but you don't want to say it out. You know you're going to do it. But you don't say it out loud because you're scared. Agar bol dungi to karna padega. That's why a lot of people talk about things that their goals are on social media, because then there's pressure, right? Like, I've got to do it or whatever, right? And I just was very scared. I think I had the book in me for a very long time. I just was scared that if I say it out, I will have to do it. And if I say it out to just myself or to my spouse, I'll have to do it.
Yeah.
And it was after doing dishes on one COVID night where I sat back and I told my husband, I think I'm ready to write a book. And he said, I think I've been thinking about the same thing and I think you should totally go ahead. And he's like, what do you think is going to be? And I think that's when I told him that I think, we are constantly asking our peer group, like, what do you do to raise a great child? But we've had so many, like our grandparents who've raised children and our parents. And, I feel like the parenting philosophy and ethos is still continuing to be the same. The challenges, like the Gita, may change, but essentially the ethos is largely the same. And why are we not diving into these human libraries? Like they are just a plethora of information unarchived. And he's like, great. So he's like, what are the kind of parents that you want? And I said, this. And I must say we got a large part of the parents. And the idea was to get as many parents whose kids have accomplished or, paved paths in many different walks of life. And we largely got most of them. And then very strange, we finished this conversation and I just went to my Instagram and I had a DM from a publisher and they said, hey Mansi, would love to connect with you for a book. Here's my number. Could you reach out?
Just that day.
And I was like, that moment.
I mean, Instagram.
And I was like, oh my God. Like, I know Instagram listens and the ads are served to you like that.
Are people also listening?
Oh my God. Like, that was like, I have no words. Like, Instagram
That was your calling card, huh? You're like, up to karna hai.
Up to now to is like, I have to do it. Like, now to like, in Gujarati, we say that when Lakshmi comes home to put a tika to you can't go to wash your face that time and say, okay, I'm just going to dress up and come back. But it was serendipity.
Yeah, but your second book is about, parents of accomplished individuals like Priyanka Chopra, PV Sindhu, and, so many other celebrities. So I'm sure you must be having some thought process behind creating that book that, are these parents doing something different to, build that hunger within them that, when they grow up, they are, achieving so much, much more than a normal individual, and they still have the drive to achieve more. So what came out of your book from these interviews of, parents of these celebrities, that how did they nurture their children differently?
So when I started, yes, there was this question like, what did they do right to create this kind of hunger and grit? Because to me, grit is a very essential ingredient of a human mix, right? And if there's one quality I really want my kids to have is grit. And I've also read Angela Duckworth's Grit, right? So I was like, wow, like, it was a very important book. And I was like, what do these parents do right? And then there were questions like, okay, our kids are growing up in so much abundance today. Will they have the same grit? Can they create new when they have so much abundance, right? Will they create value? Then the other myth was also about saying, as parents today, if my kids came and told me, okay, I want to be a gamer. Am I taking gaming as a serious profession today? So we're having conflict between parent and child in the professions you want to choose, because we don't understand 21st century professions. And those professions are going to evolve at a very, very rapid pace, right? And so therefore, just because you don't understand it as a parent, does that mean it's wrong or it's an invalid profession? Or challenges that our generation is possibly the first one that's facing, which is, kids coming up to you and telling you, hey, I have different gender preferences. I don't think any generation before us has faced it. Or if they've faced it, they've never spoken about it. But our generation is the first one to be facing it. And I feel like, how can I sensitize parents to that even more? That, like, nothing is going to tell me how to be more sensitive as a parent or more empathetic than asking a parent who went through that. That's why we have Sushant Divjikar's parents in the book, because his dad held him and embraced him with open arms when he said that, yes, I am gay. And how can we have more parents like that, right? So it is about that. And also to understand, if your child takes a career choice which is very different, like we have parents of Hartirat Singh, like his father said, like Hartirat is working with the Hemkund Foundation, right, which his father founded, and they helped so many people during COVID and continue to do seva all along. What if your child takes up a profession like that? Is seva a profession? Don't know. So if you are a parent who has that dilemma, for me, Harsh Jain of Dream 11, right? His father, Harsh Jain grew up in a family of abundance.
Right.
How did his parents create that grit? How did he make him so hungry that he's outdone his dad today? Like, really, what conspired into that being, right?
What was the answer to that?
I think, and for that, everybody should read the book.
Of course, yeah.
But I think a few of the things that came to conclusion is, no matter what you study, what you do, if you follow what your heart says, and I've seen in all of the cases, the child finds success in what he or she loved to do. So if you can trust your child, let them follow their heart, they will find success. All it needs is a little bit of time. And I love saying this, कि वक्त को थोड़ा वक्त दो. Let time find the right time, right? And that's what I think they did brilliantly. They trusted their kids. They stood by them. It wasn't like Harsh didn't face harsh times. There were times where he was struggling. There were times when he was coping. His parents stood rock solid even in those tough times. And he swung so high after those first few years. It's not like if you are an Anand Jain's son, you're not going to face struggles. You are going to face struggles because you're building a business. That you build that business and you have to go through that hardship. And he went through that hardship. So to me, that is what I want kids to see. And even like a question like PV Sindhu, right? Mr. Ramana gave both PV and her sister the same upbringing. Woke both of them at 4 a.m. for badminton practice. One didn't complain and one complained after some years and said, I don't want to do this. And she's a doctor today in the US, and PV continues to be an Olympian and a world champion, right? Not every child is meant to do what you want your child to do. Right? It's as simple as that.
And what did, because Priyanka Chopra is a well-known figure, what did her mother had to say on her upbringing?
I think Dr. Madhu Chopra is a God-sent person for me. She actually, it was the first interview I recorded.
Oh, is it?
I was nervous as hell.
Why?
And in spite of doing like a zillion interviews
Huh.
before, but it was maybe because it was for the book, and
Uh-huh.
and I had very limited timeline on recording with her,
Okay.
and she was a sweetheart, and she just hugged me and she said, "Tum ye jo kitab likh rahi ho, this concept, how did you even come
It's
about?
very
Like,
unique.
it's very unique." She's like, "Nobody wants to know what I did right or what my husband did right to raise Priyanka." Parents get very little credit. Our children are always bearing the fruits of their success, but we are never we are never put in the limelight ever. And I said, "Auntie, I don't know." And then I was going through a very, going through not a tough time, but I would say a lot of conflict in my head, raising my own child at that time, which was barely about 11, 12. And, and teens is a very, very tough phase in a parent's life. And she just told me this one thing. She said, be that punching bag for your child, because they're going through so much you have no idea of. And I'm not joking, Radhika. That first interview was so empowering. That one line kind of changed my equation with my child. Even today, like it has catapulted our relationship to a complete 360. Like it's become so beautiful. And I feel every chapter, no matter which life stage you are going to be in, whether it is about being a 2-year-old parent or a newborn, or not being a parent at all. Like, we know so many kids who have read the book. We've got so many young people who've read the book, and they've all said that it has some or the other story has left a mark on their life. And for me, that thing which Priyanka's mom said, which was just trust your kids. If you want them to have an opinion, hear their voice and be their punching bag. Those 3 things kind of sums up for me Priyanka's chapter.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. And also, like, there was this child who didn't make it to IIT. He was like a 22, 23-year-old, and he read the book and he had come for one of my talks, and he came up to me and he said, "I hate my father." And I said, "Why?" And he's like, because he thinks because I didn't get into IIT, I'm a failure. And I said, forgive him, because he didn't know much either. Like, he's coming from lack of information, that just because you don't make it to an IIT does not mean that you're successful. And he read this chapter, which was with Sandeep Nelwal of Polygon. Okay. And Sandeep Sandeep didn't make it to IIT either, but he's extremely successful today. And he had read that chapter of Sandeep's, and he came back and he said, "My father thought exactly like this, and I could never forgive him." And I said, forgive him, because Sandeep didn't make it, and please tell your father you will also find your success at some point in time. Even Shlok Srivastava, who goes by, who's a huge YouTuber and tech YouTuber, has close to, I think, 30 million plus on subscribers all across different platforms. And he didn't make it to IIT as well. And then he went to another engineering college, and he's extremely successful. So I said, IIT is not your badge of success. It can be a defining moment. It cannot be the entire lifeline. And, that boy wrote back to me 6 months later. He said, "I cannot believe that one line that you told me, that forgive your father," because he was coming from a space of, or lack of information. And forgiveness is the key to all happiness. He's like, "I just forgave my father that evening." And he's like, "My relationship with my father has changed since then." And I was so pleasantly surprised. I had no idea that he would reach out to me 6 months later. And he said, "Today, my father and me are very, very good friends." And this is a 22-year-old guy in Bangalore who I've never met. And these stories just still give me goosebumps.
Yeah,
I
think
like,
that's what
how was this possible?
Makes your entire purpose so worthwhile.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, my God, I can keep going on and on hearing your stories and testimonials, but we'll refer your book for it, and I'd suggest everybody also to read your book to know more about the stories. But it's been a pleasure having you over our show, Mansi. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.